Welcome back to Raise the Praise, where we choose to reclaim our joy and thrive in every area of our lives. That's physically, mentally, financially, and spiritually, to do all that God is calling us to do with a spirit of excellence. I'm your host, Jennifer Bell. I am a wife, a mom of 3 amazing human beings, a former school administrator, and an ex-dieter turned health and wellness faith influencer. Listen, I want you to know that God is concerned about our health and our well-being. He says so right in His Word, 3 John 2. I also want you to know the definition of health is not just the absence of disease or infirmity. Health is the condition of being sound in our minds, bodies, and our spirit. Listen in each week as we aim to encourage you to live the life you deserve, get your mind, your body, and your spirit in alignment, activate your faith to truly thrive in every area of your life. I'm so glad that you are here. Let's get ready for today's episode. So let me just introduce you to Evelyn LeVasseur. Listen, she is the owner of Evelyn LeVasseur Fitness, a company that focuses on helping busy, overwhelmed moms reach their body goals without dieting or deprivation. I love that. Evelyn knows that moms can be especially hard on themselves and expect perfection in our homes, our jobs, marriages, and of course, with our bodies. But you know what? She wants every woman to know that she can want to change her body and love it at the same time. Most importantly, Evelyn knows that moms want what is best for their children, and having negative feelings about ourselves can lead our children to have negative feelings about themselves too. How true is that? So Evelyn is sure to approach all things from the angle of knowing that our actions shape our children and the legacies of health we will leave them. So just so you know, she is a certified group and personal trainer, a hormonal fat loss coach. Ooh, I can't wait to talk more about that. And has a specialization in behavior change. So let's welcome Evelyn to the show. Welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy and excited for this conversation.
It's going to be a good one because you and I have been trying to get in touch with you. I've been wanting to talk with you for a while now after I heard bits and pieces of your story because it does parallel mine. Mm-hmm. You talk about stopping the 19-year cycle of dieting. Here's what I always say. There's always a story behind the weight. There's always a story behind the weight that causes us to be unhealthy, whether it's physical, mentally, even financially and spiritually in some cases. So, but when you understand what is weighing you down, a lot of times your healing can happen. So let's just start there. I want to pitch this to you. She doesn't know what I'm going to ask her, y'all. But my mission scripture is 3 John 2, where he says, God says, beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, even as your soul prosper. And I always explain health as being that condition of a sound mind, body, and spirit. So let's just start with that. Welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you. I am excited. I love hearing what you're saying in that we think about health. When we think about health, we think about food and exercise and what our body looks like. And really it is truly starting from the inside out and seeing how the way you feel about yourself impacts not only your body and your mind, but everybody around you and the energy you bring and the energy you attract. You start to see that your life as a whole is a representation of what you're feeling to begin with. And that's huge.
That's absolutely. But, let me... In their introduction, we talked about what are we leaving our children? Mm. Our girls, especially. I have 2 girls. I know you have 2?
2 girls, yeah.
Girls as well. And they do. They watch us as moms, as parents. How do they navigate their own bodies and accepting their bodies? I'll tell you this. I started dieting at the age of 12. I am in 6th grade. 12. And you know what I did, Evelyn? I ate lettuce and yogurt because I was ashamed of my body. Now, there is a story behind that the deeper part of it, but just knowing that that's where the dieting roller coaster started for me at age 12, because I did not like my body. So let's start there. And when you talk about, how you really got off the dieting roller coaster for good, but what put you in that place initially?
Well, when you say 12 years old, I remember, I can't say that I started dieting that early. I didn't start dieting till college, but I definitely started getting these very mixed signals about body and its relation to your value very early. And it's only been more recently that I started thinking about all these things that affected me. But I remember being 9 years old. I was in the 4th grade, and I used to take the bus home. And there was a boy every day as I got off the bus, he would squeeze my bottom, and I would try to hide with my backpack, and I was 9. And I remember telling the bus driver what was happening because I was so uncomfortable. And his response was, "Honey, what do you want me to do? You got a cute butt." So at 9 years old, I didn't really understand that message, but I knew that I felt very icky inside. Mm-hmm. Hearing it. But I think that also started to make a connection for me about your body was something cute. I didn't, that's when I started to first hear weird conversations. But I was very athletic. I was very fit. And I got so many compliments about my body right up and, through high school, getting into college. And it got to the point where even though I was a straight A student, even though I was very active in school and the community, the focus that people brought to me was my body. I was a pitcher on a softball team, and I would get a lot of comments about my muscular form and such. And it literally became a part of my identity. Evelyn has to look this way because that's the only way she gets attention. And when I went to college, and that first year is a little bit rough. You put on maybe that freshman 15, freshman 15, maybe a little bit more. When I started to gain weight, I felt like I was losing myself, because who was I if I wasn't fit? And that's when I tried my first diet. And I, first of all, loved it because it felt easy. I was 19 years old. It felt easy, and it felt like, ooh, I could just manipulate my food and look how quickly my body changes. And then, of course, as soon as I stopped the diet, I put the weight back on. And again, not addressing the real issues. I just tried another diet, and then another and another for years and years and years. So I think for me, the connection became that my value was completely attached to what I looked like. And without that body, I didn't even know who I was. And that's how my dieting cycle started and stuck with me for a long time.
Wow. It's amazing how we get to this point where we're not, I don't even want to use the word satisfied with our bodies, but we're not taking care of our bodies because that's what our responsibility is. It is for us to look a certain way so that others can validate and affirm us. Mm-hmm. That's how I started as well. And of course, went on a 25 plus year roller coaster of the diet. And I started more, I want to say, professionally dieting in college, because I thought, I'm in college now, I'm going to use one of these programs, well-known programs. Now, let me just say this and qualify this. Those programs work. If it works for you, great. But for me, it wasn't sustainable for me. Mm-hmm. So I counted the points. I got food in the mail. I went into centers. I've done all that. I did lose weight, but I gained it right back and then some. And then, of course, I started to turn inwardly, what's wrong with me? Why can't I maintain, whatever? So with that being said, move on to where you got to the point, I'm done with this. Because I always say this, diets don't work. Mm-hmm. They really don't. And I think about the first 3 letters in the word diet. I was really killing myself, really to get to a certain size, and I wasn't healthy. Healthy. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I love that you're saying, you said that word sustainable. I mean, when we start these programs and we try these new things, there's always this promise that you're going to lose weight, right? And it is. You're going to lose weight because essentially you're getting put into a calorie deficit. You're changing up your food. Maybe you're exercising a little bit more. You are going to lose weight. But these programs don't account for your individuality, your life, your work, what to do when the program is over, how it's affecting you mentally, how it's affecting you spiritually, or the fact that when you stop the program and you rebound and gain weight, and how you're going to guilt and shame yourself and feel like, you start throwing words at yourself like, why don't I have discipline? Why don't I just have motivation? Why can't I just have willpower? Like, what is wrong with me? None of these programs account for what happens when it finishes. And I feel like that right there is the determining factor. If somebody is promising you weight loss, great. They're not promising you, though, a sustainable life, and they're not promising that you're going to keep it off, and it puts you on a horrible mental roller coaster. But I had to go through it to get to where I had to be. So when someone comes to me and says, what do you think? Should I try keto? Should I try fasting? I always say, I don't recommend it, but I do think that we all have our own journey. And if that's what you feel that you have to try, then I say, try it. You have to go through your own steps. But for me, it was kind of layered. I continued dieting, even though I was successful. I was a middle school teacher. I was doing very well in my life, but always in the background feeling uncomfortable about myself. And then I got married, and that's where things started to get a little bit blurry for me. My husband wanted children immediately. I was like, give me a little time. But a few years later, we decided to try, and I got pregnant very quickly, and I actually lost the baby very quickly as well. And we tried again a few months later. The doctors kind of ease you and tell you this is normal. So we tried again, and I got pregnant again very quickly, and I made it almost halfway through the pregnancy, and I lost that baby too. And I feel like that's when things really started to change for me, because I felt almost defective as a woman. I felt like, why can't I just do this? What is wrong with me? I had a lot of arguments with God. I would literally argue, like, why are you doing this to me? Why can't I just do this thing? What is happening? And, about a year later, through a lot of tears and fights and cries and prayer, we tried again. And I remember not praying, but I remember begging God, if you let me do this, I won't just be a good mom. I will be an exceptional one. And I got pregnant again, and this time I stayed pregnant. And the difficult part is that there's a little part of you that's hopeful, and there's a big part of you that is terrified. So even though I went through my pregnancy mostly comfortably, I did have to get put on bed rest, but I didn't let myself feel that excitement for what was to come. I wouldn't let myself think about the future that I could have with this baby, because I was so afraid. But let me tell you, when I had her, I had a scheduled C-section, and the doctor put that baby next to my face, I could still feel her little cheek. I burst inside, like I was breathing for the first time. And I remember just thank you. Oh my God, thank you. This is real. Yeah. And that's when I started to see that my existence was not just for me, and that I had to live and parent with intention. And I did. I was very, very intentional about never talking about body, and never talking about, things like good food versus bad food, healthy versus unhealthy. Like, we only talked about some foods help us grow, and some foods are yummy, but they don't help us grow, so we don't eat those all the time. But I didn't realize until much later, now that I had my two girls, we were at a picnic a couple years ago. I tell this story. We're at a picnic, the girls get out of the pool. I serve them a burger, a salad, and some corn. And a woman says to my daughter, who was 10 at the time, very seriously, honey, if you want to keep that figure, you better lay off those burgers.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And when you have the struggle that you and I have had, and you intentionally don't say things like that to your child, when a person from the outside says it, it punches you in the gut. Yeah. But that also was maybe the slap in the face that I needed to see how women in general don't realize that our words are kind of breaking our daughters at their core. We are telling them, I see amazing things for you. You can be anything you want to be. You're beautiful. You're strong, but you got to fit the mold. You got to stay small. You got to be strong. You got to be thin, because all of those things are important. So even though we try to lift our daughters up, we teach them to judge themselves based on their exterior rather than their character. And that's when, everything changed for me. It was, I can feel in that moment the shift in my mind, the shift in my heart. And that's when I knew, yes, I had been focusing on intentionally raising my daughter to be strong, but I was not living that for myself. I was still partly judging myself on my exterior. I was still partly feeling negatively about my body. Even though I had this amazing family to be grateful for, I was focused on my outsides. Everything changed from that moment, everything.
I so can relate to you, Evelyn. I did not know our stories would parallel that closely, because I miscarried.
Wow, okay.
And went through the same thing. I didn't even understand what depression was, but I too was angry with God. I'm like, at that time, you were hearing on the news, people are having babies and throwing them in the trash. And I'm like, we wanted this child. I don't understand. And then I do, as you were sharing your story, that second pregnancy, getting past that particular week when I lost the baby, it was like, I don't want to get excited. I don't want to, but I'm trusting God. And then, you get past that and you go on. So you can enjoy and look forward to, but I didn't either until she was actually here. And so going back to when the lady said that about your child, I never knew my daughters were watching me, because I was still dieting on and off. Get that baby weight off, you gotta And so it was when my daughter told me, Mom, I thought you didn't like me. I knew you loved me. She was in 8th grade. And I say that it's so significant, because it was when I was at that age that I suffered through childhood abuse, right? So I didn't even make the connection, but she said, I knew you loved me, but I didn't think you liked me, because I would say things like, you sure you want to wear that to school today? But I was very conscious not to say something negative, because I know how that felt. I was teased growing up, I had glasses and I was always overweight and all that. So, but I didn't know that my words, and it may not have been my words, it may have been her watching me go through all these diets, not being satisfied myself, as I'm thinking I'm setting her up to be more successful with accepting her body, not knowing unconsciously that I would say things like that she would internalize as, I'm not good enough, I don't look good, and I'm beautiful. But it's amazing what our girls pick up, the what do you call it? Non-verbal cues, if you will. Because we are their first teachers in everything in life, especially being women. And so that was a wake-up call for me, and one that I've found that when we talk about what really is holding us back mentally and emotionally, that shows up in our lives physically. So the healing has to happen, has to begin somewhere. And I like that someone said, being healthy, heal thyself. Yes. We have the responsibility to take care of our own bodies, right? And we also have everything within us to heal ourselves. Heal thyself mentally, emotionally. And then I believe something that you talked about, it'll show up physically. So let's talk about that a little bit, dive a little bit more into that, because your story is not unique. I mean, our stories are not unique. Women are suffering like this all the time. But how do we share with them, our journey, our stories, to how when we start to take care of the mental and emotional part, the physical healing can begin as well?
I felt like the more that I focused inward, the more easily my outside body changed effortlessly. I mean, without the dieting, without crazy exercise. Now, I will say that I am a personal trainer and I do love lifting heavy weights. I love it because of the challenge. My husband and I are super competitive, so I love to drop and do push-ups next to him and be like, yeah, I got that. But that's a preference. That's not a requirement. I can say that when I felt super negative about myself, when I felt that I wasn't worthy, because that is what I felt. That is what I felt, that I wasn't worthy. When I felt that all of my decisions followed suit. And when I say I would eat a meal and still be hungry, but I wouldn't allow myself to eat more because it was almost like a form of punishment. You don't need to have more, you're big enough.
Right.
Or if I ate, I don't know, cake at a party, which is normal, you have cake at parties, then I would have to exercise more because it was a punishment for my eating behavior, not really realizing that all along. First of all, my very first step had to be detaching my value from my appearance. And that was hard work because I had to literally let go of all those years of being told that I was beautiful, that I was this, that I was that, and then finally accepting that of all the things that I am, a mother, a wife, a sister, a friend, of the impact that I want to have on this world, my body is the least relevant part of me.
My God.
And on top of it, I remember sitting and thinking to myself, Evelyn, you are literally living the life that you prayed for. You are living the life that you prayed for. And that's what I realized, that I had been living in gratitude. Yes, grateful for my husband. We have an excellent relationship. We've been friends since we were little kids. I have 2 healthy, strong, very empathetic daughters that are feisty too, don't get me wrong. But I have a home that I love and a job that I love, and I was grateful for all of it. But I wasn't grateful for me. I didn't treat myself as a blessing to them. I just saw myself as blessed. And when I was able to make that shift and say, you are a blessing too. You are worthy of feeling all those things you want to feel. That's when I was able to let go of what I look like. It literally is irrelevant. My appearance is irrelevant. And that's where my journey started, letting go of that outside connection.
And it's so hard for us to do that as women. I think we are so hard on ourselves. I mean, especially when it comes to our body, especially when it comes to our power, our superpower. I mean, we carried children. We brought children into this world, and we think we're not worthy. We sustain our homes. We support our husbands, and we have jobs outside. We do a lot of things. But, in my mind, I was thinking, but that's what you're supposed to do, right? And just kind of, what's the word I want to use? You kind of minimize those things. We are beautiful creatures that God has created, and we do have a superpower of bringing humans into this world. And I think we forget, like you said, the blessing, that we are a blessing. I never heard it that way. I want to always be a blessing, but I never thought that I was the blessing, And so I don't ever want to get to a point where I'm not grateful for where I am as well. And that, I think, is sometimes it's a little trick of the enemy, because why should you? I mean, you're healthy, you're fine, you're this, that, and the third, you have a home. Why do you want more? Why should you deserve more? Those types of things. And a lot of it goes back to those limiting beliefs of how I saw myself, or how women see ourselves, with the fact that, okay, yeah, I've got stretch marks or something. Baby, you carried 3 children, why can't I accept the fact that there's a reason for them, and be okay with it? And here I am at the age of 54 currently, and just now accepting myself, because I will tell you, the weight came off, and I've had it off for almost 7 years, but I still wasn't happy with this body until recently, when I had to do that mind shift work, that mental work. That is hard work, Evelyn, because when you go through so many years of thinking a certain way, or not allowing yourself to appreciate where you are in your body, your character. I love how you say that. As a principal, I would always tell my kids, good character is doing the right thing when no one's looking. We don't emphasize that enough in life. Just be kind, be courteous, be trustworthy, all those things. Instead of
Jen,
go ahead.
I just think that we are so trained to focus on other people's characters. When we talk about our daughters, when we talk about our sisters and friends and our moms, we talk about all the things we love about who they are. When we mention ourselves, immediately we talk about what we look like. It's almost like there's a disconnect between the way we love other people and the way we love ourselves. We love ourselves with contingencies. I love myself better when I'm thinner. I love myself better when I look a certain way. But I love you for who you are. Like, there is a big disconnect. I feel like we have to be able to bridge that gap and look in the mirror and just say, I love you. I am worthy. I am enough. I am enough. I mean, there is such a cleansing that happens in your heart when you finally accept that you don't have to fit someone else's mold. You just have to wake up and show up, and you are enough. When you get to that point, there is power that you have inside of you that everybody else feeds off of, truly.
That's kind of where I am, to be quite honest with you. I have it on my mirror. I am enough. I have to say it every single day, and I have to say it out loud, because I would equate my worthiness to a degree or an accomplishment, and not even realizing you've been married almost 32 years. And I not only love my husband, I like him a lot, right?
Yes.
I have these 3 beautiful children. They're adults. My youngest is almost 20 years old now. And it's just like, but I'm always looking for the next thing. I can't seem to rest. So I keep telling myself, you are enough. And then I added, with God, I am enough. And for me, that tends to say, okay, it's not just me, because God is helping me. I know I can be enough through him. So, oh my gosh, this conversation is so rich, and I cannot wait for even my own daughters to hear it. Where do you go from here? You have your daughters. How old are they now?
My oldest is 12 and my youngest is 9. So 6th grade and 3rd grade.
Oh my goodness. Precious ages. Oh my gosh. And my oldest daughter, she will be 29. And I know she suffers from body image, and she'll not eat. And this is not how you become healthy. So let's talk about that. When you get to the point and you understand the why behind your weight, or what you feel about yourself, and you start to work that out. And it is some work, starting with the mind. We have to renew our minds and how we see ourselves and what God says about us, and start telling ourselves we are beautiful, we are enough, we are loved, we are all of these things, and we have something to say and something to give and impact this world. I keep telling, I have affirmations all around me, right? But moving to the point where now you have to live it and be it. Will you tell that young lady, or someone who may be listening that struggles with, okay, I hear you say all this, and understand that I know I've got to get my mental and my emotional health together so that I can be healthy, heal myself healthy, that condition of a sound mind, body, and spirit. Let's get rid of the diets. Can we just start there and start working on a lifestyle? So how would you share, like, the first steps for a woman to go, moving into that area of thinking that I can do this, I am enough, and I'm going to work on healing myself and this body?
Yeah. I love that you said how you start with that why, because when I coach women, that's exactly where we start, with the why. But I don't think that we understand how deeply ingrained these thoughts are. And I mean, from when we were little girls, if you turned on that TV, you saw that the popular, most accepted girl in school was thin and pale, and she had this, idea of a body. Every commercial, every diet commercial, even the kids' TV stations are programmed with diet commercials. There's constant messaging around us. Television, social media, even in the grocery store. You cannot walk into a CVS pharmacy and not see 100 fixes for all the problems that they determined you have. Gray hair, wrinkles, weight loss, whatever. All these things are aimed at letting you know you're not enough, You have a problem, but hey, spend your money and I'll fix it. We are bombarded with ideas that we are not enough. So I think that first is acknowledging that these messages are coming from everywhere else. They're not coming from inside of you. Next, I think, is being able to unlearn some of the habits that you learned. Because when I think back, I can say as early as being a little girl at home, I know it was not intentional, but I believe that I was raised, which a lot of us are, in a disconnect with our bodies. So infants know exactly what they want and need. They will drink, they will turn their face when they're done, right?
Right.
And it's not until adults come into the picture and they tell you things like, you can't get up till you finish eating. Or if you want dessert, you have to eat all your dinner, right? So you knew when you were little, you knew when you were hungry, and you stopped eating when you were comfortable. But it wasn't until adults said, you have to finish that plate of food, that you started to ignore your own instincts. You started to disconnect from your hunger and your fullness cues. So you learned to look for outside sources to tell you what was best for you.
Right.
So I feel like very, very little, we got disconnected from our very own intuition. And I work hard with women to reconnect to that, because the truth is your body will tell you everything that it wants and needs if you learn to listen to it.
Absolutely right. And I'll just say this. I remember just unlearn the things that you were taught. We were taught that you need to eat everything on your plate. There are hungry children in Ethiopia. And so you get that guilt trip, even though you're full. And my goodness, it just clicked for me that the struggles that I would have, I would know I was full, but I'm like, you still got food on your plate. And it was ingrained that you needed to eat that. And then, of course, you do, and you feel awful. And then as a young girl, sometimes you get into some eating disorders and all those types of things, not even realizing that it was ingrained, that disconnect you were talking about. Wow, that's powerful, Evelyn.
I mean, even that whole thing with, because my dad used to say that all the time, there are starving children. And in the back of my mind, I was saying, then why are you serving me so much? But I would never say that out loud. But, it's literally making a connection between food and guilt too, where as an adult, I can say there are starving children, and that breaks my heart. But the amount of food I put on my plate is not going to help or hurt them. If I want to help them, I can take steps to help them. I can donate to somewhere that helps children suffering from hunger. I can go to a food pantry. I can make a monetary donation to families that need it. There are things I can do to help that issue, but that has nothing to do with the food in front of me.
And we don't teach that.
No.
At least we weren't taught that growing up. And here's the other thing. You have to eat 3 meals a day and 3 snacks and all of this. That's a myth. And that's how we get, I believe, well, let me talk about me, unhealthy, because I was always looking at, you got to have 3 full meals and 3 snacks and eat all day long. That's not necessarily true. It's not. I don't eat that way now. And I'm just as healthy, more healthy than I've ever been. Right.
And that's where I feel like, so we learned when we were younger to look for rules about our food from the adults. That kind of perpetuated an unhealthy relationship with food. So then when we got older, we still couldn't trust ourselves. We learned now to focus on diet rules to tell us what was best for our body. And now, not only are we having to unlearn what we learned at home, we have to unlearn all the diet rules. I mean, there are so many diet rules. You have to drink your coffee black. You have to not have carbs. You can't have meat, but you need extra protein. Maybe you should do keto, or you have to fast. You need to have a gallon of water a day. There are so many rules. And what I work with women more than anything is shutting off all that noise and trusting your body. If you wake up and you're not hungry, guess what? You don't have to eat. I even have, we do so much mindset work and so much undoing of these rules. And I'll still get the questions like, but should I work out on an empty stomach? When you work out on an empty stomach, do you feel that you have the energy for your workout? Or do you feel that you're not working out well because you're hungry? It's different for every human being. There is no one size fits all approach that's going to trump your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you need. You just don't know how to listen to it.
Mm-hmm. Because of you've been conditioned so many over the years, and I totally get that. I will tell you this, what I've learned since then is to listen to my body and also to fuel my body with premium nutrition. And this is why I thrive. It helped me to get the weight off without crazy dieting and deprivation. And when I tell you, it was so bad. I thought I was obsessed with the idea of losing weight, because I would jump from every little thing, whatever is coming out, that's what I was trying, because this is going to be the one. This is going to be what makes me, healthy and happy, right? Instead of the fact that I had nutritional gaps. And once I filled those nutritional gaps, guess what? Those crazy cravings stopped. I was sleeping better. I was internally thirsty and I wanted water. I don't do all of those rules like you were talking about. And it's so freeing. I can go out, well, prior to COVID, go with my friends and not have this conversation in my head. Well, you want dessert, so you better eat a salad and just eat a little bit of, it's crazy what we do to ourselves. But when you become free, oh my gosh, to really live your life and enjoy the food, enjoy the friends you're with, enjoy your body. I've never been able to say that in a long time, because where I am right now, I'm healthy and I'm happy. And that's enough for me, whatever size I am, whatever the number is on the scale, whatever the size of the clothing is. I know that I'm healthy and happy, because, you don't get there overnight. And that's the other thing. We need to stop the quick fixes, because there is no quick fix. It's a lifestyle. So as we get ready to wrap up, I'm just so happy we had this conversation, Evelyn. And I love the work that you are doing. What would be your last words or your parting words for someone who says, yeah, I hear all of that, and I understand that I have to start with the why and all of that. How can I unpack all of this? But I'm so deep into that I want to look a certain way, and I don't know where to turn. How do I get to this point where I even want the help? I say you got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like when I help women and they are their most successful, it's when they have had enough. When the thought of doing another program is so overwhelming, like the thought of being told I cannot have another X, Y, or Z is just disgusting to me. So when you get to that point, you make decisions differently. But I would say as a starting point is to understand that, like you said, there is no such thing as a quick fix. These thoughts have been ingrained in your mind since you were a little girl, and you have to give yourself grace. If you think about when you start a new job, there's a learning curve. You put the work in to get better at it before you master it. When you're in a relationship, you get to know that person before you jump in and fall in love. And it literally is about reconnecting with yourself. So you have to start small with acceptance first. I think acceptance comes before love. I do. People feel guilty because they feel like they should just love themselves, which, yes, I believe you should love yourself. But if you spent your whole life being told that you weren't enough, that doesn't just happen naturally. You have to, just like when you get to know somebody else, you accept them first for who they are. I think there's levels to falling in love with yourself, and it starts with accepting yourself for who you are. I think about it in like if you were meeting somebody for the first time. You don't just find a person on the street and say, "Hey, you, I love you." That's a little strange. You have to first get to know them. So you have to start getting to know yourself as you are. You have to accept who you are, not what you look like. You have to accept who you are. You have to focus on learning to trust yourself to be in any situation, because you know what's best for you. Once you have mastered acceptance and trust, then you can feel that love for yourself that you've been missing all along. But I do believe strongly that you need a guide. I don't care if it is a coach. I don't care if it is a group. I don't care if it is in therapy, but we have blind spots and we're not always aware of what we're feeling or what we're thinking. And we take our feelings as facts, and they're not. You spent your life feeling not good enough, and that is not a fact. And I think that there are outside people who can embrace you without judgment and help you separate the feelings from the facts so that you can really dig into how you got here so you can start getting out.
I love it. You're so right. And I always say this, change isn't change until you change. Mm-hmm. So getting to that point, and I love how you say accept yourself. People think, well, you got to just love yourself. No, you have to accept yourself first. I love that. I've never heard it stated that way, but it's so true. So my prayer is that those that are listening will, first of all, accept themselves and then get the help. You are right about that. The support that you need, not another program, because a program is going to say, buy this thing, do this thing, and you're still in that cycle. But someone who will support you, who will, call you on the carpet, give you a checkup from the neck up too. Sometimes we need that to help you get to the point where you have unlearned and start learning new habits and accepting yourself. And how do you love yourself just as you are? So with that, I am so excited that we've had this conversation today. And, guys, you can get off of the dieting roller coaster or, that self-sabotaging notion of who you are and what you have to be and all of that, and just simply be who God has made you to be, the most beautiful person that you are, and that your fingerprints were designed to do something to impact this earth. So with that being said, thank you so much, Evelyn. I'm going to have your information in the show notes. Y'all want to get in touch with her, but real briefly, tell us, how can they find you, Evelyn?
So I am on Instagram and Facebook at Evelyn LeVasseur Fitness or evelynfit.com. Can I just say one last thing? There's this thing that I've had this thought in my mind for a couple of years where I keep telling myself, when I am hurt, I pray. When I am happy, I pray. And I always look to my faith to guide me. And I always say that, we all say that God doesn't make mistakes. And if he sees me as perfect, and my husband sees me as perfect, and my children see me as perfect as I am, who am I to question that? Who am I to question that? What a disrespect to the blessing that I am I living if I am constantly feeling like I am not worthy and I am not enough? I have to be able to accept that I am perfect as I am, and I can want to change, that's fine, but that doesn't make me less than in the moment. And I feel like that is a driving force for me.
That's just beautiful. That's beautiful. And what a great way to end this episode, because I am perfect just as I am.
That's right.
Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And I look forward to getting to know a little more about you.
Yes. I'm so grateful to have been here. It was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And I feel like, our daughters and other women are better because of the work that we're doing. And we're going to heal each other.
Absolutely. Because we can.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey friends, thanks so much for sharing your time with me today. Real quick, before you go, if you found value in today's podcast and something resonated with you, would you leave me a 5-star review and subscribe on iTunes? I am thanking you in advance, and I look forward to reading each and every one of your reviews. You can find me at raisethepraisepodcast.com or join my Facebook group, Choose to Praise. Until next time, remember to choose joy and raise the praise in every area of your life.